launched a new initiative to brand locally manufactured goods for the local and international market. The Made in Kenya trademark will be affixed on all Kenyan products for identification, authentication, and marketing purposes. It will also ensure producers become more responsible for quality. Joining me in studio to have that discussion is the Director of Brand Kenya, Chris Diaz. Thank you so much for finding time to join me this morning.
Good morning.
Asante sana. Now, yesterday I spent some time taking a look at the 2011 Brand Kenya Master Plan. And in the Master Plan, the Made in Kenya campaign was actually highlighted there. I guess my first question to you would be, the Master Plan was released in 2018. We're launching it in 2018. Why has it taken 7 years for this idea to become a reality?
Great. First, and I love your bracelet. It's got the Kenyan colors.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thanks. So the Master Plan was done by a different board in 2011. And we were very clear that we were to introduce the Made in Kenya identity. As you know, Made in Kenya is a big pride for Kenya in terms of Kenyans taking ownership on products and services which are really differentiated and authentically made in Kenya. So we have done a number of campaigns. We had Make It Kenya, which has been successfully run, and then coming on into elections, pre-elections 2016, we had a big Plus 254, Kenya Kibao. We ran lots of campaigns and we positioned the country both locally for better cohesion and also international positioning. So coming into the planning for the launch of Made in Kenya goes in also with the Ministry of Trade in terms of their launching of the Trade Week of 2018. Okay. And that was very clearly mapped.
Which is going on this week.
Yeah. And this is critically important now because we want to increase exports and we want to increase employment. As a big support for the Big Four in government in terms of manufacturing. And manufactured Kenyan goods are really of high quality, and we're looking forward to seeing more manufactured goods to increase exports. Exports now, Waiga standing at $5 billion US. Really, we have potential to grow and to grow this, by 20–30%. Given there's a lot of investments and also a lot of manufacturing growth in Kenya at the moment.
So the whole idea is that any manufacturer that meets the standards that you will you will set as Kenya, or an independent body will then be able to have the Made in Kenya sort of signage on their products or on their services?
So that's a good question. So the Made in Kenya mark will be communicated through Brand Kenya. So Brand Kenya management team is working with the Kenya Bureau of Standards to ensure first there's a high quality of product. The second thing is the mark is really beautiful. It brings Kenya together. The centerpiece is green. It's one Kenya, one country. It's got the 47 brown dots which represent our counties. Now our counties also have beautiful brands and products and experiences, and this is where we can also trade within the business internally. You see, for example, it could be even Tembea Kenya, more tourists just domestically. And then we also got to look at intra-Africa. And I think the Made in Kenya is going to be the right moment in terms of innovation, in terms of creativity, given that Africa is only contributing 15% to the global trade, while you see the Americans and the Asian markets, global trade is 50 to 60%.
Okay.
So I think the trade agreements in Africa, the Made in Kenya mark, and what the Deputy President and the President launched yesterday are very critical in creating employment. And employment is a big problem in Kenya. The more we invest, the more we market, we will be able to get more Kenyans working and also being able to be employed.
How long is the campaign supposed to run for?
So a campaign will run for quite a long time because Made in Kenya is going to be a big
5 years,
5 years,
or
yeah.
15. How many?
It's pride, it's emotional connection to the brands,
okay.
Not only for Kenyans, but also globally in international markets. People will recognize to offtake our Kenyan products.
What are the goals? Do you have a list of the goals of this campaign so that 5 years from now, Kenyans can sit back and say, when Chris Diaz came for this interview, he said that it will achieve 1, 2, 3, 4, and we can then rate that campaign on that, because of course the campaign is being run by taxpayers' money.
Exactly, and I think that's very important for us and Kenyans to evaluate and to recognize exactly how much we are going to grow in terms of exports, number one. In terms also, so exports currently where we are standing and how much we will grow in terms of year by year. And we clearly mapped year by year how we want to reach. Now the Vision 2030 is very economic growth of 10%. We can see the GDP showing between 5 and 6% growth already. We are seeing more Kenyan youths buying and asking, and there's a demand for Kenyan products. Again, there's a lot of pride and connection for Kenyan products. If you look at the growth is how much stakeholder engagement done. That's another measure. The more people talk about this, the more we're very strong digitally. The more we position the country, that there's more interest. Again, internationally, we got to see how we're going to perform in various indexes. Currently, Kenya is, as a country, on brand finance, the last index we were standing at position 5th in the world in terms of perception, in terms of our tourism. Yeah, so we need to move from 50 coming downwards. So brand index, number of exports, stakeholder engagement.
The parameters you've set that will help you know whether you've achieved success or not.
Yes, correct.
I've heard of made in India. I've heard of made in China.
Yeah.
Would you consider made in Kenya an idea?
Well, it is, and you see anything.
Also,
well, I would say one thing is that all the measures and evaluations today for a great nation, for a great country, and cohesiveness, and also to increase our business engagements, is all about measuring how made in Kenya is as an identity. Identity mark has been researched as one of the key drivers of increasing business and increasing exports, increasing revenues, bringing tourists into Kenya, bringing investors into Kenya. So made in Kenya encourages people to come and invest, because in Kenya, you know, we have great people, and resources are available in plenty. What
do you say to those who say made in Kenya is an imitation of made in China, of made in India?
No, no, no. We are authentic, we are different. And let me tell you, when you talk about our tea, you talk about our coffee, we are the highest producer of flowers in Africa. We contribute 1/3 of the best roses in the world. So all this is, Kenya is a differentiated, authentic, and then people of Kenya are very proud of what they produce. So that's another messaging and cohesiveness that we need to bring out strongly.
Okay. For Kenyans, obviously, with some of the challenges that we've seen in society over the last couple of months, have become a bit skeptical about some promises that are made. And so they like to look at if things have been done well in the past, then they can believe that something will be delivered very well in the future. Let's take a look at some of the previous campaigns done by Brand Kenya. You've spoken of them as successes. Some may say not quite. For example, the Make It Kenya campaign, the one which we saw the Kenya Sevens team wearing. You called it a success, your own. Well, but what many Kenyans will remember is the Kenya Sevens team blurring their jerseys. Would you really call that campaign a success?
Well, yes. I think there's a lot of learning from there. And I always say, you learn from yesterday and you control tomorrow. So number one, we are very human as Kenyans. And yes, there were some mistakes that happened, and the players, they came back into Kenya and they apologized, and things went on. First and foremost, I must also thank the government. After that, there was 21 million shillings given to Kenya Rugby to support the team. And sponsors like ourselves and some other boards, like Bidco Africa that I sit on, also give the sponsorship, and we have sponsorship for 3 years. So it means the Kenya Rugby team really benefited in the long run, because they got some more investments.
Not in the short,
And they went for the World Cup, and they're going to play in Dubai in December, and they're going to play again in Cape Town, the World Series, they're going to do well. So I think there's a lot of encouragement. This is a global asset, and the rugby team is positioning Kenya very strongly, not only for investment, for awareness, and also pulling more tourists into the country.
So do you still say Make It Kenya was a success?
It was a success, and I think the players and us have bonded more closely. We got a lot of free PR, I think, out of all this.
So speaking of track record again, I want to take you to other campaigns that you've done. We've had campaigns like +254. We had one that was launched, I think, earlier this year, County Branding Index. So if one was to ask whether Brand Kenya simply year in, year out launches campaign after campaign after campaign, the launches we know about, they're announced on TV, but at the end of the process, I haven't seen reports. For example, is there a +254 report that says this is what we achieved? Do Kenyans have access to that? I see now there is a County Branding Index. Follow-up on things like that. Where can one get that information? So
first and foremost, our office at NHIF building in Nairobi. We have a website with a lot of the reports in there, a lot of feedback in there. We engage a lot. You can see our followings, Twitter followings on Make It Kenya now is reached over 100,000. It continues to grow every day. Our Facebook followings, Instagram has grown strongly. So digitally, Brand Kenya has a lot of communication and engagements. And I think last year when we did the +254 Kibao, it was really positive, especially pre-elections. It's so difficult when there is so much push and pull in the country, and the economy is taking a tough time. So Brand Kenya is positioning this positively, not only in Kenya, but also overseas. So I think here we play a very, very big role. And then maybe you don't, for branding, you don't be able to physical.
But that doesn't make sense.
But perceptions are changing always.
Branding should be about seeing things physically. And I mean, you talk about the Plus 254 campaign, but if you ask most Kenyans about 2017, Panadias, to be quite honest, there was very little positivity in the country. If you look at Ipsos Synovic's rating around November, it was, in terms of Kenyans' beliefs in their country and government, it was at the lowest point ever.
I agree with you. I agree. That makes our marketing, branding very difficult. And that's why you'll find that our job is very difficult when there's a lot of negativity. But Brand Kenya's job becomes very, very easier when we come together as one country. And this is where you'll be able to measure Brand Kenya's work. But again, you look at going forward, what Brand Kenya has got some fantastic campaign. And one of the challenges we face all the time is funding. So we have to go to the private sector, we have to look at sponsorships. But again, you look at our runners, they're continuously doing well in athletics. We see other people doing great things across the world. So Brand Kenya capitalizes to position them. We also prepare them out with different media, and we work closely with media. And media, both locally and internationally, upscales most of the Brand Kenya campaigns. Okay.
I mean, obviously, you retain a very optimistic outlook. In your view, since you've been a director of Brand Kenya, which campaign would you say has been a success?
Well, I think the success is going to be really for us now is Made in Kenya.
You believe Made in Kenya?
This will support the Big Four, and really the government has got a really good integrated focus on the Big Four. And this directly, again, supports agriculture, food security, housing, and we really need to take care of our Kenyans in terms of healthcare. So how we communicate all this is really going to inspire Kenyans so that we support what we are going for, and we have targets. And the future have great talent. So a lot of our campaigns around employment. You know, we also want more people getting into the digital marketing, getting into branding the country, and also getting exposure, working with the UN, working with other organizations that partner with Brand Kenya and partner with the government. So how can we lift the country up and make sure Made in Kenya is a big success going forward?
How does Brand Kenya position Kenya in a positive outlook on the global scale when Transparency International put us at position 148 on the corruption index? So when you meet an investor, you're presenting Made in Kenya, they're looking at Transparency International, they're looking at World Bank ratings, they're concerned.
So there's going to be definitely be addressed. And if corruption is addressed and the government and the president is shaping the solutions around corruption, we cannot stop corruption fully, but we can control corruption across Africa. So Kenya needs to take those steps, and they're moving forward. And I think that will greatly position the country, because people perceive us by our integrity, trust, respect, and humility, and how we engage with the rest of the world. So I think really, you know, the World Bank 2014-2018 has given over $4 billion investment into Kenya for sustained growth and also for inclusivity. So we need to work with international partners. And results, we have to challenge to build that we as Kenyans need to make changes. And the changes have to be integrity.
What sets your body apart from the Kenya Tourism Board, the Kenya Investment Authority, the Export Promotional Council?
Okay, good question. The lead as the lead agency in terms of branding multi-industry, branding the nation, branding the country, both internationally and domestically. But yes, we are integrated very much with Kenya Tourism Board, which is focused purely on marketing tourists and to bring inbound traffic and revenue into the country for tourism. If you look at Promotion Council, you look at Investment Authority, we work all together. But we set the branding standards, we set the communication standards. We've just done a public service branding, which has been presented to the government to bring consistency in terms of how we communicate as government of Kenya to all stakeholders.
There are those who say we don't need all these bodies. Unite them all. That all of you are doing the same thing. You're all using taxpayers' money, but all fighting for the same space.
Well, we need great new Kenyans to come onto these boards, and I would recommend that we consolidate into one big marketing board of Kenya, and then we bring all the specialists.
That's a dangerous recommendation to make. Some people might lose their jobs.
Well, I opinion, because the stronger we are, the more cohesive we are, the more impactful we are. So if we have several boards or we have one big board, it all comes down to the same results.
Okay.
Yeah, it's how we integrate and how we work together.
Let me briefly take you back to Made in Kenya. So do we have any company right now with the Made in Kenya branding?
So initially when we started with the Made in Kenya, already 40 companies accepted and endorsed the brands. So going forward, you know, even myself as being a group director at Bidco Africa, we will endorse the brand in terms of our communications, to our website. It's a great brand, and we feel that we are very proud that we employ so many Kenyans, and we have great ingredients going into our products. We produce excellent, high quality. So we accept and position the brand in our communications.
What benefit is there to a company that somebody has if they get that particular identification?
Well, first and foremost, it's unique, it's differentiated, it's authentic, it's high quality, and I think Kenyans work very hard, and we produce excellent products, and we're very proud. And when Kenyan consumers use a product that's made in Kenya, that's emotional pride, and they connect and resonate with the brand. And the brand gives them high quality, is well competitively priced. And again, Wahiga, I must say, the trade week this week of 2018, all the stakeholders have said we need to be more competitive.
Okay.
If we want to increase our exports, we want to give consumers, we also have to be competitive. And our pricing, you know, Africa is driven by pricing. We really need good pricing. And the government is partnering with us, and the private sector is pushing the agenda for the partnership, but based on competitiveness.
Okay. Now, you've talked about companies already endorsing the Made in Kenya sort of campaign, but the truth of the matter is, for the Made in Kenya sort of logo to become valuable, it must set a standard that companies should aspire to meet. So who will then sit and decide that these are the things that a company must have for it to have access to sort of the Made in Kenya signage on its products?
Okay, good question. So the board of Brand Kenya, the management of Brand Kenya, Kenya Bureau of Standards, so we're integrating a team.
Okay.
They will look at, for example, you must have over 50% employees must be Kenyans. There are certain requirements we are looking at. The product must have ingredients over 50% that is Kenyan produced, or fresh raw materials coming from Kenya. We are looking at product is assembled in Kenya, then how many people are employed, what other products are used in the assembly process. So all in all, we are going to encourage more Kenya, higher quality of Kenya, and the value giving back to the people of Kenya is going to be greater on products which are having the Made in Kenya.
How do you avoid conflict of interest? If I work in Brand Kenya, obviously I want my company to have that sort of Made in Kenya signage, and yet my company maybe doesn't meet the requirements. How do you avoid conflict of interest? Because Brand Kenya directors also have other jobs.
Well, so you see the management team, and we have auditors, we have internal auditors, we have external auditors, other partners. So the private sector is partnering, and we will encourage, and we're going to have more private sector engagement. So we will have also people from private sector to audit and see that we are doing things fairly. And I'm already seeing very positive support from the private sector.
You're seeing very positive support from the private sector. Is this campaign targeted towards the market or to Kenyans?
So yes, both. First, Kenyans, and Kenya market is very important. We are growing now. Kenya is going to be a market of over 51 million people. We're looking at the East Africa community with the Africa agreements that have been signed. So it's also going to target Africa. And then, of course, our tea and coffee. Today we produce the flowers, as I mentioned.
Okay.
All go to Europe and go to Americas. And now with direct flights to America. So we are targeting the Asia markets are going to be very important for this campaign.
Okay. Now, Bwana Diaz, I know you are not part of the directors back in 2011, but there's something in the master plan in 2011 that has caused a lot of uproar on social media. I don't know if you look at this. I feel it's only fair that I ask you this question.
Sure.
It's on page 158 of the 2011 Brand Kenya master plan on their website, and you can find it if you go to the website right now. It's titled Kenya's Attitude Segmentation, which already is a statement I don't understand, as defined in the diagnostic report. And they've lumped or sort of into 4 areas: Western region, Central region, Rift Valley region, and Eastern region. And they've used words like, 30% negative, 24% positive, 22% segment portion. They've called certain areas positive patriots, others mundane cultural. When the previous board was handing over, explain this to you? This has raised a lot of uproar.
Well, I agree with you, but I don't think this is the way we would accept it, because right now we are focusing, and as you mentioned earlier, on counties. And the county index showed us what are the strengths, what are opportunities, and areas where we are weak.
Okay.
And we have addressed that with the county representatives. So I feel that we can put this in the past. Yeah, I agree with you, and we control the future. So going forward...
Would you condemn a document like... I mean, some feel like this was written by colonialists. The colonialists who came and sort of lumped Kenya into regions and used words like positive patriots, negative. I mean, I don't know, how would they have come up with such data?
Well, I agree with you. This shouldn't have been, put down on paper. We should have done it in a more positive way. We should have done proper research. And I'm not very sure why this was done in this way. But
it's actually still in the report. I saw it, initially I thought it was, to quote Donald Trump, fake news.
Yeah.
But I went to the report yesterday, went through it, and
I can see prepared, but I hope it's not a printing mistake, but this is not acceptable.
This is not acceptable.
Not acceptable, yes.
At the end of the day. Has Brand Kenya made any mistakes? Did the original thinkers think it would be easy to brand Kenya?
Well, I think Brand Kenya, they have a lot of ambition, but they don't have enough funding. So one of the mistakes they do is we try and plan really big campaigns, but then the execution of the campaigns always has a downscaling again because of the funding. Yeah, so one of the areas that I think Brand Kenya has not done very well, and I challenge to build is we need to do really good stakeholder engagement. And then we must involve all Kenyans to be brand ambassadors, and they must understand what Brand Kenya is trying to achieve. And as you said earlier, Kenyans need to measure our success. We cannot say what we are doing is successful until more and more Kenyans engage with us. And the best way is to appoint Kenyans as brand ambassadors.